Every day of the seminar so far, except for today, I've worn a tie that has frogs on it. And the last day I get more dressed up. I know I look the same as all the other days, but I don't wear a frog tie. Normally when I go into banks, or the Bank of England actually, I don't wear a frog tie. And I have many frog cufflinks that people have given me, and I've had made over the years by Asprey and Tiffany and all the other shite. But today this is more my regular uniform, sans the frog ties. And for those of you that have been in my office, you see I have a lot of frogs, actually hundreds, and pictures. And in our bedroom we have frogs. We used to have a frog room in our estate in Asia, where just the whole room was frogs. And because it's very easy to fall into default. I already know who's going to fall into default first and who will fall into default last, but you will all fucking fall into default. All of you. That's just because even though 50, 60 hours here can change whether you're 20, 30, 40, or 50, the change isn't 100%, and you'll fall into default. My default is QLA, but there's 100% QLA and there's 70% QLA. But I have things and I carry things all the time. This is supposedly been blessed by some fucking shaman who's got either a 1 foot dick or a 1 inch dick. I don't remember which. But it's go with the flow, and he's it's this rock that came from Cro-Magnon or I don't know what the fuck, but it says go with the flow. I carry it around. And sometimes they'll look in my briefcase going through security. What's this? Is it a weapon? Well, actually, it is a weapon. But and then another one that supposedly George Patton. Anyway, this bullet, this cartridge, most of which you should. If I had the weapon, you should put it in your mouth and eat it. For most of you, because that's what your future shows should have. And so I have, and this one says from victory to victory, and that Patton said that many times. So I continue to have, even at my level of QLA-ism or QLA bot, I continue all the time. And the kids that do find it easier to put off default, because everybody falls into it. And when you call your mom again, the 6 months you didn't talk to your mom, Joel, were good. Arguably the best 6 months of your life, which is the antithesis of every single thing that you've ever been taught about motherhood, God, country, apple pie, etc. Everything you've ever been taught in your motherfucking life. But unfortunately, motherhood, apple pie, doesn't get you much. Where's my mom? Does it, Mom? And so I keep her around. For those of you that have been into my office, these are a portion of my mother's ashes. I have my mother's ashes in a felt box next to my desk. But my default with my parents is not default. That's part of the QLA basis, because they helped me. Arguably, they built my self-esteem. Unlike, with the greatest respect to your mom and your dads, the likelihood of that happening are not impossible, but fairly remote. Last night you saw Joel. When he looks out the window, what does he say?
Of course they will.
Of course they will what?
They lend out the money.
Correct. And of course they didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah.
They paid themselves, mostly.
Correct. too big to fail, Secretary of Treasury, played by, I forget the actor's name, but anyway. And but everybody in the know knew they wouldn't. So I'm a believer in, market forces should prevail, and they should let everybody go on boost, as Sally would say. Of course, where would we be today if that would have happened? I would have been richer myself, but I can't speak, and I know most of these guys would have been. But what was the takeaway from the movie? Some of the takeaways. Yes, Joel.
I think, it's the epitome of conventional wisdom is almost always incorrect. When she says that we can't put restrictions on, we want to give them 100 and whatever billion, we can't put restrictions on them in case they don't take it. I mean, that is just the epitome of conventional wisdom that is gone wrong.
Yes, Patrick?
So they could tell them to buy this company, they could tell them to, for me that was one of the takeaways, they could tell them to two companies go together and no, let's make this deal, those two go together, but they could not tell them in the end, now use the money.
Yeah, well, they could have done that. And the other part that I don't think it's in the movie, that the Secretary of Treasury actually got on his knees. Was it in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot. And begged. Now, if I was Secretary of Treasury, I would handle it considerably different, in a different manner, because the government has so much power over these guys. I mean, I wouldn't be, no, Matt, would you please do it? All of a sudden we'd have the Department of Justice on you, and like they do, and then, oh, man, is that what you were asking me to do, Dan? No problem. Yes.
The overall message I got is that in good times, rich get rich, and in bad times, they get richer.
Well, I'm glad, because that is the takeaway. That's why I said that if it had happened, guys like me and others would have gotten much more wealthy. And that's why I say, when it comes down to the haves against the fucking have-nots, and I'm up on the embattlements with my automatic weapons, which I have, and we're stacking up the fucking bodies, like during the Korean and the Vietnam War, and some of these movies where the crazies are trying to they're climbing on each other to get to the top. Okay, I'm going to be the fifth horseman of the apocalypse, riding through the streets, like the Headless Horseman, that program that's on TV, the Headless, just, okay. That's when the alpha males will prevail, And that's when it's going to go from 99% Henry Kissinger's and 1% alpha Pattons and me to 99% alpha males and 1% Henry Kissinger's, because we're going to take the money away from all the Henry Kissingers. With the greatest respect, Dr. Kissinger, which I doubt he watches my thing, but I know people that know him that watch it. What are some of the other things that you...
Self-interest will always prevail.
Amen. Allah be with you. Yes, Andreas?
When I think it was the chairman, the CEO of Lehman, if I remember correctly, that
played by Woods, the actor, yeah.
Once he was in real trouble, he went anywhere to get the money. Exemplified by Mitsubishi. Yeah.
And just like Simon was saying, it was either everything was gonna go to shit, or he had to get the deal done. And when you give yourself no option, and that's what a failure is not an option really means. It doesn't mean that there aren't failures. But you've got, if it all falls to pieces, or as Sally would say, it all ends in tears, I mean, you're going to be dead, out of business, kaput. And so miraculously, somehow it happens. And it's not miraculously, really. Go ahead, Patrick.
I have a question, and I think I know why, but I would like to hear your take on it. So when the boss of GE calls and says, we are not a financial thing, we make planes and we make light bulbs, and we don't have any operating money on Monday. Why does he not have any money anymore when the investment banks... Well,
that's what he's saying. That's GE is as big as many banks. And the interesting thing is they're hiving off their financial section, or whatever they call it, that has made 40, 50, up to 60% of their money for years and years and years. They're hiving it off because they feel that my opinion, they feel that they'll get a higher multiple if they're not rated as a financial institution, and whether that happens or not, I don't know. Yeah.
One of the other things was, about having the power, when all the heads of the banks were called in, and some of them were saying, why should we take the money? We don't need the money. And the subtlety was when they said, we will remember you.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. It wasn't so subtle, actually,
Yeah.
but we will remember you. And because I remember the guy that played Wells Fargo's bank, which was a strong bank then, and it's a stronger bank now. What the fuck? Well, we don't want it. You know?
You're having it.
Yeah, we don't want it, we don't need it, but you're having it. And a good portion, if not a majority, some people say all, which is an exaggeration, that money still hasn't been lent out, any of it. So ostensibly the main reason they did it never came to fruition. Yeah.
One other thing was the guy with the beard, I think he was the economist or someone.
Oh, Bernanke.
Yeah, and the thing was that he wasn't much of a speaker, but a lot of wisdom actually came from him. The way he sold things in his weak voice, the way he said it, everybody got it, and everybody then acted.
Well, I mean, a lot of people. I'm not necessarily one of them. Said that he was the saving grace. Of course, he's running around the world selling a book now, which is fine. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Yes, David.
Warren Buffett wasn't too patriotic to help out.
No. Warren, Mr. Buffett. I mean, he didn't see any. As he says, he missed the .com because he couldn't understand it, and a lot of those things. If I remember, he said AIG's got 32,000 financial products. What the? I mean, you're not gonna put any money in that. I mean, so no. But a lot of those guys, the patriotism, and I was gonna wear I have a pocket handkerchief that's got a U.S. flag on it because of I was gonna bring up that angle, but I didn't. No, when push comes to shove, I mean, you think of yourself first, and then maybe your family, second, and then you guys, and well, maybe my mates, my friends, third. But it's yourself, self-interest rules. Self-interest rules. And where I tell you, in a good way, you need to, all of you, just about everybody in this room, except for myself, needs to be more selfish. But I look at I look at self-interest. Go make $1 billion and then go save the fucking rainforest. If that's what you want to do. Don't march with placards, as they say, around the fucking embassies when you got you're sitting there and you haven't cleaned your underwear in 3 days. I mean, because you got no money. That's all. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of time. But and most of those guys that are doing those marching have nothing but time. As they say, we've got nothing to do and all day to do it in. But anything else about, yeah.
It's interesting how no matter who the next administration was going to be, a lot of those guys were either promoted or kept their job.
Yeah, the only guy that lost his job was the head of Lehman, because they decided to close Lehman down. Lehman was not the only one that could have been closed down in that fiasco, or that episode, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of the people that lost their jobs at Lehman would be the first to tell you that. There's interesting dialogues in there, and that's not 100% accurate, the movie, but there's interesting dialogues in there just to show you how the system worked then, but it certainly didn't allow free market to reign, which is what capitalism is all about. Now, one final note for the YouTubers. During the Great Depression that lasted from the late 20s till the late 30s worldwide, it was a worldwide depression, not one single bank went under in Canada. Not one bank. In the Great Debacle of 2008-9 through 2012, a lot of banks went under, not one bank went under in Canada. And there's interesting reasons, one of which is their lending is much more conservatively based than the rest of the world. Okay, YouTubers, thank you. We'll talk to you today after lunch.